Okay. Good. Bit empty. Good morning. It's 9 o'clock, and I'd like to reconvene the governor's capital budget hearing. And we'll begin right away with the Department of Environmental Services. Good morning.
Good morning. For the record, I'm Bob Scott with the Department of Environmental Services. I'm Commissioner. I have with me the head of our accounting unit and our acting chief financial officer, Kim Boone. So she's here to kick me if I say something that's wildly wrong, I think. But so if I could, I'd like to start. So hopefully you have our PowerPoint presentation in front of you, which summarizes our asks. The first page is just a summary of requests. As you can see, we're asking for a little over $38 million. And I'll quickly go through our individual asks as we've grouped them. So the first ask is on page 3. This should be no surprise to you. We have every biennium, we have needs for dams. Our fleet is 270 state-owned dams. The average age of our fleet is 100 years, and obviously, as these dams age, there's work to be done. Some of the concerns we have are not only just deterioration of dams generally, but also obviously in 150 years, standards change, and as we look at dams, we find they don't meet standards sometimes also. So that's always a tension with us. So included, you can see in our ask a list of the dams that we intend to work on. Always in the budget, we consider this, certainly we intend to do this list, but it's an indicative list. So if we have, over the march of time, we find a swirl hole in front of a dam, we prioritize to make sure public safety is met. So the other thing I'll add to this, part of this ask for our dam funds is some additional keeping up with automation. So some of you may be aware, for instance, in Madison, we got 5 inches of rain in a very short period, which caused some flooding issues. To the extent we can have up-to-date, accurate forecasting methods, we're able to help avoid that. And so keeping up with that technology is very helpful for avoiding impacts to the state. And that's part of this also. Moving to, on the same topic of dams, moving to page 4, in particular, we did this as a separate item. So Pawtuckaway Lake has 2 dams and 2 dikes. The difference is the dikes don't let water out. That impound that lake. There's a lot of, on the impoundment, we have private camps and homes, but we also, the impoundment supports Pawtuckaway State Park, which I understand I have Adam Crapo here in the background, but I understand it's one of the most visited of the parks. So that impoundment is an important component of that. The problem with having 4 dams that all need work is if we don't get to do them all, our assessment right now is $21 million. If we need to do them one at a time, we're lowering the impoundment each time roughly 25 feet to do the work. So what we want to do is, if we can arrange it, is to have all that work, all 4 dams be done at once, and to minimize the impact on that impoundment. So what we've been able to do is our HSEM, our Rob Buxton's group, has done a really good job with us. They believe some of this dam work could qualify for FEMA Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities grant program, which is BRIC, as we call it. But what you see here is we require a 25% match. So that money's not been awarded, but we want to set ourselves up so we could use that money. So what we're asking for is $5.25 million in order to get 21 million. And that would allow us to move ahead with Pawtuckaway, the 4 dams all at once. So this is an enabling funds. We're pleased to hear from HSEM. They're pretty, they think this is fairly likely money. But in the off chance this money doesn't happen, we'd still want to bank that to be able to use towards this. So which will be, if we can't find federal funding, that's really going to be our only option for some of these high priced issues. So that's why Pawtuckaway is different.
Before you go on, just a quick question on those, the first two. With the potential for FEMA grants for the ones on item 2, are there any FEMA grants or any federal grants available for the dams on the first request? And how does FEMA make their decision on which dams to fund and which ones not to?
Actually, if you could, I'll bring Corey Clark. He's the head of our dam bureau up. And I will add for brick money also, using other monies, we're also pursuing money for some work for the Murphy Dam up in Pittsburgh for Lake Francis also. So my point is we're seeking federal funds any way we can get them, but at the end of the day, even if we're lucky enough to get them, we still need matching money, et cetera. So Corey, you have to look them up. Thank you. All right, so Corey, never mind. So Corey's going to come off to the side here, I see. I knew that.
For the record, Corey Clark, Chief Engineer at the Dam Bureau at NHDES. And so one thing with these brick grants through HSEM is it is a unique situation where these grants are typically for resiliency projects, floodproofing projects, things of that nature. In discussions with HSEM, we tried to see, would the dams in which we're looking to rehab qualify for any of these brick grants? It hasn't really been done before. I can't find any instances throughout the country of which this has been done. So to answer your, I don't have a good answer on how this would compete against other projects throughout the country, but certainly the big thing about Pawtuckaway is that none of those dams meet current discharge capacity, or even quite frankly meet discharge capacity, say during the FEMA 100-year event. So I think these dams qualify well for that resiliency check mark, and that's why we went ahead and tried to basically applied for funding through the BRIC program for these sites. It's not on this list, but we also have a current project up at Murphy Dam to replace some dowel valves. That's another BRIC grant application using current capital funding that we have as match. And so we're seeing what other alternatives we have out there for competing for this federal money. As far as other projects on this list, one of the challenges that we have, and at least that I've noticed through the BRIC grant program, is there's a very, very large pot of money for shovel-ready projects, a very small pot of money for planning and design purposes. So the challenge is with a lot of these projects that you see here, with the exception of the Lakeport Gates in Laconia, are really more on the design end of things to get projects that are shovel ready. A lot of these projects, such as the Mary Meeting and Milton Three Ponds project, we got to say 60% design using ARPA funds and other capital funds. This capital request is to get us to the finish line so that we have a shovel ready project. So if future funding becomes available, whether federal or state, we have the opportunity to get those projects done.
Thank you.
Just can I one thing, because since Senator D'Alessandro retired, I feel the need to say your budget request seems like one damn thing after another.
Well, if I could elaborate, so we mentioned Murphy Dam, for instance, the spillway for that needs to be redone and rebuilt since it was put in, 87 years ago, I think. The price tag for that will be on the order of $50 million. I can give many examples, but Milton Three Ponds, we just get an estimate for $10 million for that. So they're one of the reasons why we're, as we should, I think everybody would support, we're chasing federal money because I'm having a hard time envisioning how we're going to get $50 million out of the capital budget, right? You know, so we're continuing to look. So having said that, just because we don't do anything doesn't mean the dams don't deteriorate, you know, et cetera. So.
Do you have a sense of what the replacement cost would be for what, I think you said you have 270 dams? Like what's your, we never think about this way at the state, but what's your total capital nut, if you think of it that way?
Was it
Like what
400
if you had to
million?
replace all of your dams?
So in 2023, we looked at that exact number, whether it was a high hazard dam, significant, low hazard. And the price tag came in for the 270 of 414 million at that time. If you look at just the high hazard dams, there are 64 of those. That cost is roughly 300 million. And as the commissioner just mentioned, Milton Three Ponds is actually a $20 million project, not just 10. And so we're seeing the prices come in higher and higher. And so if you break down that 300 million for 64 high hazard dams, that's only averaging roughly over 5 million per project. And so when you factor in things like Milton Three Ponds or Murphy Dam Spillway up in Pittsburgh, I mean, the cost definitely is within that ballpark, but probably actually higher at this point in time.
Mr. Chairman. How many of the dams on the list in ask number 1 are high hazard dams?
So on this list, we have, so Highland Lake, that is a high hazard dam. Goose Pond is a high hazard dam. That project is a project which was fully funded and actually reconstructed using ARPA funds. This is really to kind of close out a couple of unique things that as part of that site. Milton Three Ponds is another high hazard dam. Mary Meeting, Jones, Alton are high hazard dams. Lakeport is a high hazard dam, or soon to be a high hazard dam once it gets reclassified. And Murphy Dam is also a high hazard dam. The reason you see some of those projects up in Pittsburgh is, for instance, like Back Lake Dam, that is a low hazard dam. However, that dam is very critical to the local economy up there, basically creating all the guides and lodging around Back Lake up there in Pittsburgh. And certainly if we were to lose that water body, that'd be a devastating impact to the community. The other projects up there are either removal projects or replacement projects. And really what we're trying to do is, if we are going to mobilize our in-house construction crew up in the Pittsburgh area to do one project, we certainly want to try to do multiple projects up there at the same time. And so that's why you see the Pittsburgh projects up there probably spending a couple of years focusing on projects in that area.
And just to verify, the monies that you're asking for ask number 1, that's money that you would put towards design to get them shovel ready?
There are some projects in here in which we would actually, these are actually construction costs. So like the Highland Lake Dam and the Back Lake Dam and really those projects up in Pittsburgh, we envision that those are projects in which can be designed in-house using our in-house engineers, constructed in-house using our in-house construction crew. So that's really soup to nuts for those projects. And then as we kind of get down into more the Milton Three Ponds, Mary Meeting and Jones, that's funding to basically take those designs from either 50%, 60% to final plans and specifications. Lakeport Gates, that's a project in which we're actually looking to replace the gates that were put in at Lakeport Dam in 1954. And so obviously there's urgency in that project to make sure that we're regulating Lake Winnipesaukee properly. And so that project is actually a construction project in there. And then the other ones are further design, as the commissioner previously mentioned. Murphy Spillway, we actually have to get through the design process on that. So that is a design project. And then obviously the flood forecasting tools and methods to try to further enhance our ability to tackle these storms such as what we're seeing today. These pop-up thunderstorms are a real challenge to regulating these water bodies.
And one final question, if I could. Commissioner, you mentioned that if you didn't receive the FEMA money, that you'd like to bank the 5.2 million.
Yeah, obviously our hope is to be able to use this as a match, but failing that, I think that's the only way we're going to get to eventually to 21 for Murphy Dam. I don't know how else we'll, Murphy, I apologize for Pawtuckaway. So I don't have a good game plan, but I don't know how else to do it in that case.
Understood.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea what the timing on receiving the FEMA grant might be?
So right now, the applications are with the HSCM. The final grants go into FEMA in July. And it's my understanding that the money, if it is awarded, would become available this fall.
Thank you.
My problem is, we'll pick the Milton Three Ponds. You've given me an estimate of 10 million, but your request is 750,000. That's just for engineering work, I believe. And that if a lot of these are just for engineering work, and I do the engineering work now, and I don't get the money, then it seems like it's not money well spent.
If I could, and Corey could add to that. So again, just Corey corrected me, so I'll go with his number. So the full amount for Milton Three Ponds is actually 20. If we don't do the engineering, we cannot then go to do the construction part or go up for bid if we're going to do that. So I would disagree that it's not money well spent, because if we don't do that first part, when the monies are available, or if we're able to get federal monies, et cetera, we can't proceed to the next stage. So these are necessary steps in order to get to the final result. Anything to add on that, or?
Well, let me just follow up on that. It seems that, especially on page 3, it would be nice to know whether this was engineering money or actually construction money, et cetera, and would help me when it comes to the Senate finance. I'm going to want to understand that when I go through it.
Yeah, that's easy enough to specify. Some of that I think is actually in the write-up, but we can certainly be more specific when it gets to assuming it gets to your committee.
Please continue.
All right, so if there's no more questions on the dams, no more dam questions, I like that. So the next items 3 and 4 are, thank you, Corey, are for state revolving loan funds. So both for clean water, just for everybody on the same page. When we say clean water in EPA speak, that means water that's not clean to get it clean. So whether it's wastewater or stormwater, and drinking water, which speaks for itself. What I'd like to point out here, first of all, is there's a 20% match. These are federal funds appropriated by Congress that pass through EPA. The amount over the past 5 years, we've had kind of a plus up for the communities, because this is all passed through to the communities, between bill money, infrastructure, IIJA monies those monies are no longer in the next biennium, will not be available to us. We're also seeing, we were lucky in the state. The state did very well in ARPA money on the state side, appropriating that for water projects. And then now Congress has been doing earmarks for the past few years, and that's been to the extent earmarks are issued, it's not out of an additional appropriation now. They're taking out of the total amount that is appropriated to the states for state revolving loan fund. So the reason why I mentioned that is what you see is matched for a significant decrease in state revolving loan funds. One of the obvious things for that I want to point out is what that means is for the infrastructure projects that are needed throughout the state, there's going to be a lot more competition for less money, which makes my pitch to you which makes matching what funds we do get even more important, because otherwise those won't happen either. So, I've been on a traveling roadshow every time I speak with an association where I have people in front of me. I've warned them for years that there's effectively a fiscal cliff for federal funding for these projects that's happening, so they can plan accordingly, if you will. So if there's no questions on that, I'll move on to Superfund match. So despite the word Superfund, I think a lot of people think Superfund means it's just an unlimited pot of money. Isn't this great? When there's a Superfund site in our state and there's no responsible party associated with it, the state effectively inherits some of the burden. So after the first 10 years, the state's on the hook for a 10% match for the federal money. And that's what you see in this case. This is for the Savage Well Superfund site in Milford. Excuse me. So that's what this is for, and this is to meet the state responsibility for that Superfund site. there's no questions on that, I'll move on to IT infrastructure. We have been, and the bodies here have been generous in helping us get more automated in the work we do for e-permitting, providing better interactions with our regulated communities, the public, and certainly making work within the department more efficient. So we have made significant progress. This request will allow us to continue that process. And the other part of this is the upgrades to our air monitoring network. Some of you have maybe known that we are, as the legislature last year mandated that we terminate the vehicle emissions program. That caused us to put submissions to EPA to get out of the Ozone Transport Commission, but also to get out of the program itself in our state implementation plan. That is ongoing, but it does put more pressure on our air monitoring network to show that we have good air quality. So that's, I'm not going to say we can't do it without these upgrades, but these upgrades help support that type of activity, as well as obviously being a asset for the public so they can understand what the air quality is, especially if you have lung issues. And finally on that, we are working with the governor, we are looking at our next phase of streamlining permitting, which is to take over from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, their involvement in our wetland permitting. That will require and put more pressure on this type of work also as we take over from Army Corps of Engineers. So any questions on IT infrastructure before we move on? Okay, I see Commissioner Goulet shaking his head. So the last issue here, and this is a new ask, but I think it's a very important one. We've been doing a lot of work in coordination with DOIT and our contractors with water infrastructure cybersecurity. So if I go back 2 years ago, every governor in the state, not once, but 3 times in the year, got a formal letter from the National Security Advisor at the White House pointing out that the cybersecurity threat to water and wastewater infrastructure, bumping that up as far as, one of the priorities for the country and one of the concerns, asking each governor, what are you going to do about it? New Hampshire, with our programs, was pointed to as one of the benchmarks everybody should look at. We feel a need to continue that. There's one of the funding opportunities, I'm back to matching federal funds, is the state and local cybersecurity grant program that is working its way through Congress, I think, at this point still. The difference is that now will require a 40% match. So what I've requested here is $750,000 so that we can get a total of $2 million to continue this work with and again, this work is not the state of New Hampshire implementing it within ourselves, but this is for all our community water systems and wastewater systems. So I consider this an important piece moving. Unfortunately, this is the new world, and we need to start including this type of thing in our budgets, unfortunately.
On that, if you could just explain a little bit about what a cyber attack on a water system would look like and what the implications of that would be.
Yeah, so there's a lot of variations we see, and again, Commissioner Goulet could probably speak to it. What we're seeing in New Hampshire even more, but we can see and have seen the more pedestrian, in my opinion, ransomware attacks. All the way from that to nation state activity, which happens every day. I do other work with the state, and we're seeing a lot of nation state activity nationally, and critical infrastructure like this is absolutely targeted. What could it do? It could range from they're going to lock up your business side of things, the computers in the office, and you can't get at it for billing until you pay a ransom, all the way from more malicious work to get all the way into your operational technology and impact valves and chemistry and that type of thing. So, which is, to me, more scary because that could impact people's health. So we've seen like this activity nationally, and I would argue, unfortunately, especially the drinking water systems are probably the most unprepared. There's a very easy level of entry for malicious actors to get into drinking water systems by and large. There are some systems that are fairly sophisticated, but by and large, we're working with, especially the drinking water systems that are really at the beginning phases of this, which makes them very easy targets for this type of attack. So what could happen? It could either stop your drinking water altogether, or it could effectively end up in a contamination of your drinking water, for instance.
To make it more simple, a lot of the valves that control the amount of chemicals that are added to the water for chlorine or fluoride or whatever could be hacked. Is that all true?
Correct. To the extent that there's automated systems being put in place, which people are doing that more and more for efficiency, that adds a level of vulnerability to your point, Senator.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much for your testimony.
Thank you.
Greatly appreciate it. Now I'd like to call up the University System of New Hampshire. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much for your time this morning. My name is Kathy Preventure. I serve as the Chancellor of our state's university system. With me is Natalie Howder. Natalie serves as the CFO, head of all things administration, everything but academics at Plymouth State and Keene State. And Ken Weston is everything facilities, capital planning, facilities maintenance, all that for the university. So we appreciate your time this morning, and I'll start with, obviously as required by law, we provided a 6-year capital plan, and for fiscal years 28 and 29, the university system requests $20 million in state support, which the university system will use to leverage our own investment in our facilities. Ken's going to talk in a little bit about 15 of the $20 million will be allocated to the Diamond Library at UNH. We would like to see a block grant in the appropriation because the university system is experiencing declining enrollment. You can read about that in the paper. And so we're downsizing our footprint. We're in the process of downsizing our footprint on all of our campuses. And so some flexibility in specific projects would be helpful over the next few years. But again, the vast majority of the ask is for the Diamond Library, frankly, because we're moving services from other parts of the UNH campus into the Diamond Library, again, to help with facilities downsizing planning. And as I mentioned, the state dollars leverage investments that the university system puts into its footprint. You'll see, if you go to, I have provided a deck this morning, and on slide 4, you'll see that what we call our education and general part of our footprint, our academic footprint, is about 4.4 million square feet. We don't include our auxiliary space when we're working with the state on state support, the housing, dining. Those are self-supporting, if you will. We have about 9 million gross square feet that we manage across all of our campuses. And as you can imagine, there's deferred maintenance that builds up, And our total annual capital budget is about $95 million from all sources. Sometimes I think folks might get the sense that the state support is all of our capital budget, but we budget 1 times our depreciation every year to take care of deferred maintenance. And so our total capital budget from all sources is about 95 million a year to take care of that 9 million gross square feet. And again, as we start to downsize our footprint, that should shrink as well. So on slide 5, again, we are requesting $20 million in state support, 15 of which would be allocated to the Diamond Library, and $2.5 million each would be allocated to Plymouth State and Keene State for a number of deferred maintenance projects. And we have lists of all the deferred maintenance by building in the last part of this deck. So again, Ken Weston is going to drill into the Diamond Library project and talk about the importance we believe it would really help with attracting and retaining students as well, to have a modern one-stop shop place for students and student success at the Diamond Library.
Thanks, Kathy. Yeah, Diamond Library is about 215,000 square feet. It is located in the center of our campus. The project is really about modernizing that space from a collection-centric library to a hub for student support services and flexible collaborative space. This is going to help us with capturing underutilized space. We're going to do that by deassessing our collection to about 58% of what it is today. And with that space that we realize, we can bring programs scattered across campus to the library to create that one-stop shopping hub for student support. Student support comes in many different forms, advising, tutoring. We have a writing center, there's research, undergraduate research, and a testing center. Currently scattered across campus, we can bring them, centralize them to this one space, which not only creates space efficiencies, it also creates operational efficiencies for delivering that service. The library is a very familiar facility to our students, so it's easy access, creates more accessibility for them. As I said, as we move programs from across campus, we create those vacancies. We can bunch up those vacancies to dispose of assets mostly at the perimeter of our campus. So as we face declining demographics, recruitment and retention is more important to us. And we know that institutions that do have these centralized student support centers, students are more likely to achieve their credential. It improves our 4-year graduation rate, which is an important metric for us. The library itself was built in 3 phases. The original construction in 1958, it was expanded in 1967, and then the reading rooms were added in 1996. The heating system is original to all of those eras and our biggest risk. So as we repurpose this space, we will also be addressing the deferred maintenance and replacing those systems. We've had success with recruitment and retention while projects are in the construction phase. We have a project at the Whittemore Center, and we are actively using those renderings to recruit Division I athletes, even though the locker rooms themselves won't come online until this coming hockey season. Similar for the library, we will deploy this in phases over 4 years. We'll start with that student support space, and then use that as a recruitment and retention tool. The project budget is $50 million. construction cost at about $41 million. That works out to about $190 a square foot, which is on the low end of library renovation projects nationally. So we'll be strategic about where we deploy that capital. We'll have more intensive renovation in some spaces and less intensive renovation in others. Any questions?
I'm curious, do I understand the library is going to be less of a library? Did you say your holdings are going to go down? And like for those of us who are old, for lack of a better word, library used to have, books. And we're going to have less of that.
We will have fewer books. We still circulate about 16,000 items annually. So checked out of the, books and periodicals and whatever checked out of the library. So that is still a big part of the service. We are shrinking the collection by roughly 42%. That is mostly outdated material, which has its own risks. You certainly don't want to pick up a textbook on nursing that's 10 years old. That teaching and that wisdom has changed in time. So we will be weeding the collection to remove those outdated items.
And Commissioner, the librarian, the dean of the library from UNH is here. If you have specific questions about kind of what the future library on a university campus looks like, and that's what this project we're trying to move toward.
No, I get that, and I'm not, it's mostly nostalgia. And actually, the Diamond Library is a soft place in my heart when I was in grad school.
Still a highly utilized facility on our campus. On finals week, there's 800 students in the building at any given time.
That makes sense. It's where I spent a lot of time with my then girlfriend, to whom I've been married 35 years now. So I have a very soft spot for the Diamond Library. So good job.
On slides 14 and 16, again, this gets to the deferred maintenance needs at Plymouth State and Keene State. And so we're seeking out, again, a block grant approach rather than identifying specific projects, and we plan to allocate $2.5 million of state support to Plymouth and $2.5 million to Keene. Plymouth has a significantly more backlog of deferred maintenance than Keene State does, but again, there are lots of buildings and they're all listed there. So, happy to answer any questions of the committee.
Not seeing any questions. So thank you very much for your testimony. Greatly appreciate it. I'd like to call up now the Community College System of New Hampshire. Good morning.
Good morning, Director Gary. Pleasure to see you and the committee. Mark Rubenstein with the Community College System of New Hampshire.
Veronica Thibodeau Carter, the Director of Capital Planning and Development at the Community College.
So I'm going to take a little bit of time to walk through the slides, but just to provide the high-level overview, we'll come to you requesting support for 7 projects at about $16.6 million. Most of these you'll see reflect broad system-wide categorical needs and allocated within our system to the highest priorities. But what I'd like to do is just take a couple of moments to walk you through the slides, beginning with our mission, who we serve, what they say about their experience with us, how our work translates to measurable impact for New Hampshire's workforce, and how that informs our request for capital support. So on slide 2, you'll see we have a statewide presence. We're not just the community college system of New Hampshire. We're the community college system for all of New Hampshire. And we seek to make higher education accessible throughout the state. More than 90% of our students are New Hampshire residents, and a significant portion of those who are not in the Upper Valley, that permeable border between Vermont and New Hampshire, and particularly in the North Country, where a significant portion of Maine and New Hampshire blend together in terms of workforce needs, healthcare services, and so forth. That accounts for a significant portion of those students who are not New Hampshire. We offer associate degrees, certificates, opportunities to partner with CTE, Career Technical Education Centers, to give students, high school students, more access to post-secondary education, make that more affordable. Short-term programs, which are going to become more prominent with the advent of Workforce Pell, and more prominent simply because the workforce is going to require that. Discussed in the past in other settings that 2 and 4 years of education in your late teens, early 20s will no longer be sufficient to address the changing dynamics of the economy and occupations over a 40 or 50-year working life. On slide 3, I've included some student voices, and you're welcome to read them at your leisure, but these are specific quotes from students, but they're also illustrative of the kinds of student experiences that we create across the state for students across their own life cycles. The alumni impact on slide 3 speaks in part to the quality of the outcomes for students who benefit from the work that we do. And you'll see that our students reflect favorably on the experience they've had with us, and it serves them well in their own careers. On slide 5, voice of the customer. We serve students, but our service to students is in alignment with the needs of employers and in alignment with the needs of students whose reason for education is what happens after, the opportunities it creates for employment. And as you'll see, whether it's healthcare, the auto dealers, business and industry, bring back the trades, our work has impact for employers across the state. On slide 6, a little bit more measurable outcome. Across the last 15 years, consistently the largest number of graduates CCS&H prepares each year are nurses. The slides reflect 24 and 25, 26 slightly larger. In fact, the largest number of nurses, about 347, that we've prepared since 2013. With the introduction of support for Go North, the rural healthcare transformation, we've actually been able to expand capacity in our nursing programs. By the time we reach 2028, we'll be preparing more than 400 nurses for New Hampshire's workforce. And data we have from New Hampshire Employment Security shows that approximately 90% of the nurses we've prepared over the last decade are still working in New Hampshire's workforce. That's the measurable impact, notable for a high demand field that's only growing in importance for New Hampshire. In terms of how this informs our need for capital, as you'll see, 7 campuses and 3 academic centers, referring back to the map earlier, 10 locations around the state, serving thousands of students in short-term programs, degree programs, about 1.4 million square feet across those 10 facilities. And our primary goals, as you see, include critical maintenance, campus safety, modernization of learning spaces to meet workforce needs, cybersecurity and IT services, and cybersecurity infrastructure, and improving energy efficiency. And with that, I will turn the floor over to Director Thibodeau Carter to describe more specifically the request.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to introduce the community college capital request for the next biennium. You'll find the details on page 215 through 226. Our highest priority is the critical maintenance priority, which is just over $2.4 million. The critical maintenance funding is needed to enable New Hampshire's community colleges to address immediate capital deficiencies and preserve the campus buildings statewide. The investments replace aging building systems, reduce failure risk, improve safety and accessibility, and lower long-term operating and utility costs. The specific urgent needs include roof replacements and replacement of the Sweeney Hall elevator at NHTI. When this elevator goes down, it is the only access for the upper floors. So it's an urgent need for the campus. Nashua Community College requests funds to replace aging boilers and upgrade their HVAC systems. Manchester Community College must replace their heating units, which date back to 1980. And they're looking at a complete restroom, to complete a restroom renovation to improve the accessibility on their campus. Modern HVAC upgrades across the campuses will significantly reduce the energy use and mitigate the risk of system failure. Without addressing the critical needs, deferred maintenance will continue to compound, increasing both operational risk and long-term financial burden on the campuses. Any questions? Our second priority is the safety and security. This will impact all of the campuses. It is a two-phased approach. So the first ask is for $4.8 million. CCSNH recognizes the need to be vigilant in safeguarding the safety of our students, employees, and visitors to our campuses. This capital request aligns with our system's priorities related to student safety, risk mitigation, regulatory compliance, ability to respond appropriately during emergencies, and modernization of the safety infrastructure. Tragic incidents in other parts of the country serve as a constant reminder of the responsibility of colleges to mitigate risk, respond, and investigate as needs arise. Deficiencies in the emergency communications and door hardware create safety challenges amongst our campuses. The emergency communications, including the code blue phones that we have, are approaching the end of their useful life and increasingly unreliable. The system repairs in the past 2 years, fiscal year 25 and 24, have totaled $400,000. So the request is seeking funding for campus-wide security equipment across the 7 colleges. The project includes replacement of video surveillance, door hardware for emergency lockdown situations, emergency communication systems, and upgrades to access control panels and card readers.
Question on that. Are most of these replacement for outdated material or outdated outdated cameras and things like that, or is it new areas that you are trying to use?
Yep, we have our Director of Risk Management here, Jason Bishop, who would address some of the details of the request.
Hi, Jason Bishop, Director of Risk Management. Thank you for the question. The priorities, as Veronica mentioned, with the cameras, a lot of it is outdated equipment. We're looking to just replace that. Due to the abilities of the new cameras, we get additional coverage, which would benefit the campus as well. So,
Thank you.
any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Our third priority is the IT infrastructure systems, is $1.7 million. As you've heard during these hearings, information technology and cybersecurity are huge concerns as we seek to effectively protect our organization and the students and partners we serve. The community colleges are particularly vulnerable because of lean budgets and staffing, the need to manage large amounts of personally identifiable information, and limit threat detection resources. The IT infrastructure and replacements are necessary to ensure the continued reliability and security of systems and services, and to mitigate risk of security and liability exposure related to the information and technology assets and cyber threats. We are near the end of service on our Wi-Fi infrastructure and associated closet switching as one example. This means we can't get support or security updates for this infrastructure at the end of the service date. Investments support campus safety, equipment, and systems. Funding for information technology enables the community college to keep pace with technology needs and support student learning, network security, and reliable operations. Questions on IT?
Commissioner.
Thank you. I recall from from bienniums past that the system had been going through kind of what I would call a rationalization, consolidation of IT. That's in standardization. How's that process going, and is that moved along well enough to help you do a better job on the cybersecurity side?
Yeah, I'm going to introduce Director
And I'm
Spade.
sorry to make you get up. I knew when I was going to ask that question that would happen, but I
Hi, I'm Barbara Spada. I'm the CIO of CCS&H. Yes, it has. The consolidation that we've been working on for the last couple of years has not only centralized a lot of the IT functions from a support perspective, but allowed us to normalize those functions across the various colleges. We've introduced a number of different functionality, ones near and dear to your heart, with EDR and MDR and endpoint protection and all. It's one of the reasons why our Wi-Fi network, which is definitely end of life and being end of service, we won't be able to get the support on it anymore, is so critical, not only to the administrative functions that we deliver, but to the core competency of education. Our nursing program, being one of our largest, is very dependent on Lardell devices and mannequins that are enhance the teaching of and the training of the nurses, and all that is what's riding on this. But yes, we've seen some very, very positive outcomes from the consolidation. We have a lot more we want to do.
excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to continue to priority number 4, which is our site improvements, parking and safety. This will impact all campuses over 3 phases. The initial request is $2.19 million. The parking lots across the multiple campuses have deteriorated beyond acceptable service levels and now require comprehensive rehabilitation to address safety issues, operational impacts, and long-term asset preservation. The pavement conditions vary by campus and range from surface cracking to structural failure of the pavement base, resulting in failure of the underground utilities. The CCS&H has been identified by its insurer that has cited defects causing hazardous conditions of pavements and walkways at some of the campuses. A phased site improvement program is required to restore safe, functional, and durable parking infrastructure. Repairs will be based on the current pavement conditions and may include the asphalt overlay on existing pavement where the base conditions remain stable, or full depth reclamation and paving where structural failure, extensive alligator cracking, or base instability exists. Addressing these issues will result in operating savings related to reduced maintenance needs and risk management and liability. We have 2 campuses that are shovel ready in their projects, and they are included in the phase 1, which is Manchester Community College and River Valley Community College. Great Bay is the other college that's included in phase 1. In that one, we are required to maintain our site based on our lease with the Peace Development Authority. Any questions? Okay. Priority number 5 is the White Mountains Community College Littleton HVAC building upgrade. This is $3 million. In that request, there's an urgent need to replace the HVAC system at White Mountains Community College on the Littleton campus. And this will also include some related building improvements on the building envelope. The facility serves a significant and growing region of northern New Hampshire and plays a key role in workforce development and access to education in that area. The existing HVAC system has reached the end of its useful life and is no longer capable of supporting the building's operational needs, creating increasing risk to campus operations and costs for Band-Aid maintenance. The facilities study that we had done in 2024 identified the HVAC replacement as a high priority capital need for the campus. The study concluded that the current system cannot be reliably sustained, and that replacement with a modern energy efficient system would generate annual utility savings in addition to reducing ongoing maintenance and repair costs. The Littleton campus does house 2 tenants, a licensed childcare facility and a state employment agency. Childcare facilities have requirements for temperature maintenance, the range that the building must be kept in. So if we fall outside of that range, they can't operate. So this is a critical item for the campus to take care of.
I have a question about your 2024 study with, I think, Colby Company, it says. You did all the campuses, all 10 sites? Was it a comprehensive, was that a system-wide study?
That was specific to that campus.
Oh, just that campus?
That
Okay.
was, yeah.
Have you done facility needs assessments everywhere?
There have been some done in the past. The current ones are based on 2023 data.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
2023 was the last time that the facilities assessments have been completed.
So by our standards, that's pretty recent. So, yeah, good.
Those studies do focus on mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. Some of the building envelopes have been identified as areas in need as well.
Yeah, I'm just asking because we're doing some of that. We hadn't, as a state, on the state facilities, we hadn't done that in a long time, and we just started recently. So I was curious your experience. You find them very useful.
Yeah, we have used them to create our critical maintenance requests in the past, yes.
Okay.
All right, priority number 6 is our energy management system. This is again a phased approach, the first request being $2 million. So a building management system project will replace the existing systems within an integrated platform to control and optimize the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning and lighting systems. The current system consists of aging and unreliable components that have exceeded their useful life and are not compatible with modern equipment. Updating the BMS system will improve efficiency by reducing unnecessary equipment operation, optimizing airflow and lighting, this will result in lowering utility costs, extending equipment life, and supporting energy-related goals. It will also maximize the value of recent and planned mechanical and electrical upgrades. As we upgrade our systems, we need to upgrade the operating systems as well. So this energy management system will be part of that. Our 7th priority is the NHTI Dental Clinic and Radiology Modernization. This is a $500,000 request. We have a partnership with Northeast Delta Dental and a commitment to provide high-quality facilities for that program. NHTI is New Hampshire's only college offering dental hygiene and assisting programs in clinics serving low-income patients. It seeks funding to address the critical safety, compliance, and deferred maintenance needs in that materials lab, the radiology lab, and the dental clinic. And this is all within McCrory Hall on the NHTI campus. These upgrades will protect public health, preserve campus assets, and ensure spaces meet the current industry and accreditation standards requirements. The work includes asbestos abatement, replacement of unsuitable high maintenance finishes, plumbing upgrades with proper filtration, electrical modernization, improved lab layouts. The radiology lab will be fully modernized with new lighting, durable finishes, and infrastructure to support current equipment while reducing the energy and maintenance costs. The dental clinic will receive new hygienic flooring and wall systems to enhance infection control and patient care. That is the end of our priority requests.
Any additional questions? Seeing none, before you go, Chancellor, I know the governor put you through it yesterday in the executive council, but with your retirement, this is going to be your last capital budget hearing. And I just want to say for the last 3 capital budget hearings and the last 3 budget cycles, it's been a personal and professional pleasure to have dealt with you. Thank you very much for your leadership.
Thank you very much, Director Gary. It's certainly been my privilege and appreciated the work we've been able to do with the governor's office, with the legislature on behalf of the state of New Hampshire and the citizens we serve. So thank you.
Thank you.
And keeping on our education theme, Department of Education is up next. Good morning.
Good morning. For the record, Caitlin Davis from the Department of Education, Commissioner, and we have Tammy Valancourt, our CFO. I also have other members of the audience, including the superintendents of the 2 projects, Superintendent Ann Forrest from Conval and Superintendent Christine Michaud from Milford. So the Department of Education capital improvement budget request consists of two pieces: the internal pieces to the management of the Department of Education, and external pieces, which are grants to schools for career and tech education programs. That program is a program that's funded in law and required to be in the state's capital budget. However, we are just a pass-through agent for those grants. Our total capital budget request is $29.5 million. However, one of the career and tech education projects has changed substantially since our original request was developed, and the superintendent will discuss that with the committee. And the project as a whole has changed. Our first priority number one, is an education management platform. So historically, the Department of Education, one of our faults is we tend to focus exclusively on external management, including our projects that we push forward to manage schools, our systems that we use to manage schools, which means that our internal systems have really suffered from that. So we seek a $4.9 million appropriation to improve all of our Department of Education internal management systems. Right now, the Department of Education is very siloed as far as the work that we do in our systems. For example, if you were to go to our facilities manager office, you may see tubes of maps and construction projects. For our teacher misconduct hearing, you may see paper files that look a lot like Matlock's office. You may see our constituent management services, where they use an Access database that was developed in 2003. And our State Board of Education records, hopefully they are in boxes in the archive building, but we rely on that heavily and have a lot of trust with the archives. There is just an opportunity right now for the Department of Education to spend a substantial amount of time and resources looking at how we do all of that work, and ensuring the Department of Education is more organized and consistent with the work that we would do. Not only make sure that the Department of Education is more accountable, but to make sure that we are better able to support our schools, our families, and the public with the work that we do. So our initial investment, as I already said, is a $4.9 million request with annual operating costs of about $500,000. The Department of Education has been working with DOIT to look at what this likely would mean. We are largely looking at a purchase and full integration of Salesforce at the department. We are not 100% committed to that as we continue to look at resources and types of platforms available for this type of work. But as of right now, looking at the various different modules that they have, as well as talking to various other state agencies that have done this type of work, including OPLC, DOT, and DOJ, we really think that is likely the best move forward, which is the annual costs of that are the licensing costs for department employees to have that. Essentially, when the Department of Education, the next slide we have, page 4, is really who will benefit from this platform. And so it's everybody across the board. It's our internal staff, it's the public schools, it's our citizens, it's the legislature, it's our educators, because we anticipate investing in a system that's going to replace all of the systems to manage our work that we do at the department. It will really improve our transparency and the consistency of the work, as well as department efficiencies in operations. The next slide that I have, slide number 5, kind of just tells you a little bit more about what they envision the management system doing. It's largely about filing organizations, workflows, consistency, and streamlined database management for the department across the board. Slide number 6. So that really shows you the types of modules that we've been looking at specifically with Salesforce that they have available to us, but also the types of modules that we've really determined that we have a need for at the Department of Education. The first one, where I say education management, we don't have any sort of electronic document management system at the Department of Education, which in this day and age is very problematic for the work that we do, especially because of the types of work that we have. So that would be, we have several modules on this piece of paper. It would be a phased approach. We wouldn't be able to integrate it all at once, but these are the types of things that we are envisioning. Inspection management. So the Department of Education has the responsibility of inspecting a large number of, well, all educational facilities, public, non-public, and charter schools across the state. So having consistency in our inspection management and the tool and having better organized tools will help us to ensure that we have safer, healthier facilities across the state. We also have a lot of compliance inspections that we're supposed to do, including programmatic and fiscal compliance with over $200 million of federal funding. So having inspection management tools on that will help us be consistent across the board. Investigations management, we really see that for our educator misconduct process. So right now, that is a largely paper process, which is, and we very fortunately have very high quality individuals that do that work at the department. However, we could really benefit from a strategy to manage all of those files and those processes in a better way. Court case management. The Department of Education has a large number of hearing functions, including adjudicating local school board decisions, parent complaints to the department, investigations like restraint and seclusion. And so having a process to manage those kind of cases would be a substantial improvement to the department processes. Provider management, the Department of Education works with a large number of providers, not just schools. And so having like Learn Everywhere programs, special education providers, so having a process to manage that would be helpful. School approval management, this would be a very large one for the Department of Education. So the Department of Education has the responsibility for approving over 600 schools, including public, non-public, and charter schools. Right now, that is largely done in paper or digital files that are saved in various different essentially folders on a shared drive. Having organized platforms that manage that would be very helpful in department's work, including, improving our efficiency in that process and our consistency in that process. Credentialing management, we have about 30,000 credentialed educators in the state of New Hampshire. We have a system right now that we use to do that. It is a proprietary system to the Department of Education, which was initially developed in 2006. We've continued to shoestring that system along with developers that we either contract with or employ at the Department of Education. However, that system could use a complete and total overhaul. And we know that Salesforce has a system for that work, and we've done some preliminary work looking at that to see if it would be what we need for that. Grants management, again, so our existing grants management program was developed in 2008 with ARA money, and that system is largely internally designed for our processes, but we could use some consistency. We could really use a complete overhaul of that system. That would include all of our education funding that comes from the U.S. Department of Education. We also have a lot of grants that come from the U.S. Department of Agriculture for food and nutrition programs that would flow through that system. Contact management, it seems silly, but we really need a better way of managing our contacts. So we have a large number of contacts. So any given day, we may need to reach out to the superintendents or the principals or the special education directors or the facility managers. And just consistency in the way that we manage that would be much more helpful across the board. And then lastly, a module that we've been looking at and we really feel like we have a better need to do better or to improve is our emergency education program management. So right now we work largely with HSEM. We would continue to work with HSEM on this function. However, just better consistency and systems for the Department of Education and Homeland Security and schools to work together would provide improvement to our processes. So the long and the short is a better organized and better managed Department of Education will benefit everybody. The next up in our presentation is a part of the Department of Education capital budget, which you see every 2 years, which is requests for career and tech education centers. So I have some information on our overall career and tech education. These are pass-through programs that come from the Department of Education. The Department of Education is not responsible for the construction, the local school is. However, we have a regionally designed career and tech education program in this state. Right now, we have regional access to system switch allows better access. It allows for better efficiency across the state. And it allows for us to reduce redundancy in programming. We've been operating that program in the regional way since the 1970s, and it's worked very well for New Hampshire. The Department of Education and the state as a whole funds career and tech education through the Career and Tech Renovation Program, which that's what we're requesting today, and then federal Perkins funding, which flows through our operating budget, and tuition and transportation to these regional centers, which also flows through our operating budget. So I just have some quick information. We can go through it relatively quickly, but we just have the core requirements on page number 9 of Career and Tech Education Centers in the state. The next slide, slide 10, is just something I want to point out. And so although we've had a declining enrollment in New Hampshire over the years, career and tech education enrollment continues to remain relatively consistent. Although we've had a little bit of a drop off in the last couple of years, but so you can see the darker green line is our high school enrollment in the state, and then we have our career and tech education. So that's just important to show that, you know, as student enrollments have continued to decline, career and tech education continues to be a priority of the students and the state. Next slide, just for your informational purposes, is we have the career and tech education centers across the state and their enrollment. So just wanted that for your information. And then we also have the types of programs that we host across our state for career and tech education and the enrollments for this school year. All right, so next up on the slide, so slide number 9, I'm going to ask the superintendents to come up for their different programs. So we have 2 programs, and because of the way, I just want to point out, we have to have priority 1 and priority 2. We requested them in alphabetical order because one is not a priority over the other for the Department of Education. But our first one is, the first one is actually Conval. Yes, but yes, different order. Sorry. So the first one that we have in here is the Conval Regional Center. So this is a Superintendent Ann Forrester.
Well, thank you for having me today. We have a CTE program in our school, and that houses a number of programming, which you have on your slides. The last renovation was in 1996, so we are looking to modernize our spaces. We started this process a couple of years ago. At the time, it seemed a good idea to combine it with some other renovations in the high school, and the project grew because of that. We did a number of community forums and outreach, and what we heard from our community was this was too big of a project right then. So we have been concentrating on scaling it back, focusing exclusively on our CTE program spaces, which do need to be modernized. And so we have a revised application that focuses on modernizing the spaces for our current programs within the existing footprint of where they are in our high school, as well as offering a health science, which we have identified as an area of need for our region. So I'm happy to answer any specific questions.
Yeah, as far as the enrollment goes, I see that it has come down a little bit over the last few years. Do you have any projections or estimates on what's going to happen over the next 5 to 10 years? In that space?
Great question. One of the reasons why our enrollment has been down the last couple of years is we've had some turnover in staff in CTE. So we had turnover in our engineering program, and that was a very difficult position to fill. So as you can imagine, if we're trying to draw from the private sector, somebody that has the background in engineering, it's a significant pay cut. So it'd be great if the state gave money to make up the difference. But we have actually just hired a CTE program. One of the things we did is our school board has, as part of the contract, given the superintendent the ability to have critical shortage stipends that we can add on top of a teacher's salary, which has really helped, especially in these particular situations. So we have hired an engineering program. We had a very strong engineering program. And so that it will be back in place, and we expect that enrollment, it'll probably take a little time to build up that program and to get kids started again on that track. But that should return our enrollment levels. And we've also we had turnover in our information and computer technology. So whenever we have turnover, we always see a little bit of a blip. So, but we're very focused on supporting our teachers and making those programs strong.
Okay, and just want to confirm, the only expansion you're planning with this is the security vestibule?
Correct.
Okay, great, thank you. Any other questions? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Superintendent Chrissy Michu from Milford, and this project that we have in our packet has substantially changed from their vision, so this one will be a little bit more complicated.
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this morning. The Milford Applied Technology Center is a program of the Milford High School, last renovated in 1997. As you can see there on the slide, we've brought a project proposal forward to the Milford community for the last 3 years. Over the last 2 years, we have fallen just short of the 60% needed to pass our bond, 59%. In fact, I think that was 59.7 or something this past year. So we've missed that 60% needed, which has not allowed us to move forward with our full renovation proposal. We are currently working with the Milford School Board to revise the project proposal request again this year. We are likely to move from a full center renovation to a renovation in place for just a program or two. We believe that we'll have better success in the Milford community. Not only will it give us the opportunity to sort of modernize the program space, but also equipment in, as I said, a program or two. Additionally, that funding request that you see before you that we've requested for the local match at 3.8 million and at the state at 11 will reduce significantly with our revised proposal moving forward. We'll have more information for you as we move to the fall. It's not likely that we are going to be putting forward another bond request. Instead, we're going to be looking to do our program specific renovation and equipment upgrades through our operating budget. So again, we'll know more about that as we continue to move forward with our budget development for FY28. And then I'll just speak a moment to the programs that we're looking to either improve upon in terms of our current programs or to add that we feel will make a substantial difference in our enrollment. And these are programs where we see waiting lists for students throughout the state. So the first is motorsports, and the other two are electrical and welding programs. So when we look at the interest in the Milford community, these are high interest areas, obviously in demand, high skill. And also we anticipate that in our surrounding communities will continue to increase the interest and the attraction to come to the Applied Technology Center and participate in those programs. Are there questions I might be able to answer for you?
Yes, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit. You have an 850 square foot addition for the culinary program. Is that a new program or is that?
We currently have a culinary program in a small restaurant. In the prior proposal that we had put forward to the community over the last few years, we were looking to expand that restaurant just a bit. And I'm not sure that that actually will be part of our revised proposal moving forward. We're still making some decisions about which programs we'll be looking to renovate. And I say program, but I'm also talking about its space, but then the equipment. We've got very aged equipment within our programs, and that is a priority for us to replace, maybe even more so than the expansion of, say, that restaurant.
Over the last few years, you've had difficulty getting a bond issue passed,
We have.
while the majority has supported it.
Yes.
I think last time it was, you got 59%, you need
Yes.
60%.
Yes.
Is the fact that you're not going for a bond issue and just at an operating budget, so it'll just be approval of the 50% basis?
Correct.
So-
Yes, within the operating budget.
Okay, so the likelihood of it passing in your estimation, I realize it's just an estimate, is good?
We're hopeful. Yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Commissioner.
So the last
One
thing-
other question.
Commissioner, on your first request, you indicated that you rely currently heavily on paper records, and there's a lot of those in the archives. Will this request digitize any of those paper records that are in archives? And will you be able to reduce the size of the records that you have at archives?
So we do hope that would help, we would be able to do that work. Specifically, things like the State Board of Education records that are in archives. We need access to those more regularly than we have access to them. Oftentimes, schools will reach out to us looking for the State Board of Education records for when a SAU was authorized to break up or a new district was authorized to form. And we don't have access to that, at our fingertips, and it requires quite a bit of work for the department to get that information. And so hopefully moving forward, we would be able to have that in a more organized fashion relative to the schools, the districts, or however we choose to organize it. And we would be able to help, one, the schools, but to remove that information from archives.
Thank you.
Commissioner.
Check me on this, but I think I'm right. In 2001, we started doing about 2 CTEs a year. And this, I think, is the end of it.
So
Like, we'll have gone through, like, I think your year 3 and 4 request is to start at the top again.
So the last school that we haven't done, I believe, is I have the list here and on page 14. I do believe Chrissy, is there one more?
I mean, it looked like it was
Yes.
20 on your list, but yeah. I thought we were close.
So we have Region 14, these two are in the queue.
Yep. So we have 2 more in the queue. So we have White Mountain and Sugar River and Claremont, and those are the last 2 that are in our
I was
list.
so close. And we think they're coming soon,
They'll
maybe in 2
be
years?
likely in our 2030 and 31 capital budget request.
Oh, that doesn't sound right. It probably is. Thank you.
Does not sound right.
Any other questions? Commissioner Goulet.
I just wanted to comment that we've had conversations about this strategy on the IT side, and it really is, well thought out. And I think it's going to be a challenge on the business side as well as the technical side, but I have a high level of confidence here that this is the right thing to do.
So it will not be something we are able to do without your partnership.
You got it.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Like to call up Fish and Game now. Good morning.
Good morning, Director and distinguished members of the committee. Thank you for this opportunity this morning. I'd like to introduce myself for the record. I am Dr. Stephanie Simic, Executive Director for New Hampshire Fish and Game. And I have with me Kathy Labonte, who is our Chief of our Business Division. And I have Bill Smith, who is our Chief of our Facilities and Lands Division. I want to thank you first for the opportunity to present New Hampshire Fish and Game's capital needs for the upcoming biennium. Our request reflects very focused, responsible investment in 3 state-owned facilities that are essential to the department's ability to safeguard natural resources, support field staff, protect high-value equipment every day that is used to service the public. We did provide a cover letter for those of you who like to read, like Commissioner Arlinghouse. We have a cover letter, but we also have a slide deck for a PowerPoint for visuals, those that are more visually oriented. We'll be using, I'd like to go through the slide deck because I think that's a little bit easier this morning. But in the meantime, if we can start, I'll say the department, while we have many needs and many aging infrastructure, just as other folks, we are trying to be somewhat fiscally responsible, looking at our current budgets and things. I recognize that we need to pay this debt back using more than likely fish and game funds. So we were, I would say, a little bit more modest in our requests this year. The department is respectfully requesting $1,075,000 to address critical structural deficiencies at 3 of our locations, which are Sewell Falls in Concord, the Armory in Lancaster, and the Bunker Lane Barn in Durham. These facilities anchor our statewide operations in wildlife management, fisheries research, conservation law enforcement, and outreach as well. Each project has been scoped to maximize the life of the existing state assets and improve the safety of our staff and visitors, as well as ensure continuity that is essential to our services. If you could, I'd like to just open up into the slide deck on page number 1. You will see that we have a total capital request is $1,075,000. Within that, we have 3 capital priorities. These are assets that are very viable to our work. It's infrastructure, it's to reduce our operating costs and protect our high-value state assets that we store in these facilities. This funding will allow us to provide greater security to these assets. It will allow us to improve safety. It will allow us to have more efficient operations. We are investing strongly into our long-term. We have a very focused infrastructure focus this year, and for the long term, we realize that our infrastructure is aging rapidly, and so that has been our priority. So going on the long term, we're looking for infrastructure focus, and this is the start of it. I'd like to switch to page 2, please. Well, yes, page 2. This is the project summaries here. There are 3 separate projects within this request. The Sewell Falls, which we estimate will be about $208,000. Project 2 is the Lancaster Armory, which is about $537,000. And project 3 is our Bunker Lane Barn, which is $330,000. I go into details starting on slide 3. This gives you kind of the current use, the limitations, and the needs of these facilities. Sewell Falls is in Concord. It's a just over 22,000 square foot building. It's actually a repurposed, it used to be a hydroelectric plant. And because of that, it is built for hydroelectric facilities and not necessarily built for our needs. So as you can see in some of the photos, we have these oddities that are built within the building, which doesn't allow us to maximize the use of the space. We use it right now to storage boats, snowmobiles. We do have our law enforcement evidence is stored in there. We have biological samples stored in there. We have a large freezer that we've put in there. And we have other specialized gear in there. But the unfortunate thing is, while it's 22,000 square feet, we're not able to maximize the use of that facility the way it's constructed. It's continually deteriorating. We've not really invested any money in this site except for as needed emergency repairs. We do have inadequate security right now. In fact, we've had multiple occurrences of vandalism. So the intent here is really to renovate this facility, to secure the property, provide lighting, provide fencing, provide windows. It's just basic things, but they're all important because it's going to protect our assets as well as provide a safe place for our staff to operate within. The interior reconfiguration and reinforced windows are our primary focus, but the security is also a top priority at all of these locations. I'll stop here for a moment in case you have questions on the Sewell Falls property before we go into the others.
Commissioner?
Is the Sewell Falls, is that the building DES abandoned? used to be the Dam Bureau before they built their facilities.
It was.
Is it, so, which I'll remind the committee, DES abandoned because it was quote unquote no longer useful. So,
Because of its inefficiency to utilize the space that's there properly. That's what we're basically looking to do, is to enhance its capability and get the security back up to where it needs to be.
I can see why you would need to if you're using a building somebody else abandoned. Are there hazardous, are there, asbestos and other issues like that? Or do you know?
No, it's mostly post and beam and cement structure. So there's a very limited amount of exposure to asbestos, lead, or anything like that because of the lack of paint, et cetera, in the entire facility.
Oh, that's great. Okay, thanks.
I have a question, and maybe Commissioner can help me on this, but is putting more money into a facility like this, which really wasn't designed for your needs and may not meet all your needs, a better option than maybe looking for some other property or some other structure where it could be a better fit?
The foundation of the building and structure of it, the bones basically of the buildings are solid. They're not going anywhere anytime. It's just they need to be maintained and retrofitted for our needs. That's all. That's why it's such a small request in dollar value. I think it came out to, yeah, but it was only $9.15 per square foot. Because we can do most of the repairs and removal in-house with our own team. But the overall structure of the building is very sound. Original construction was in 1905 and it was upgraded in 1953, I believe, where it's been well protected from the elements, being a hydroelectric power. So yes, I would say it is worth investing in here. You'll probably get another 20, 25 years worth of service out of these structures.
Thank you very much. Those are excellent questions. Same questions I had when I first was inquiring about these things. So if we're ready to move on, we'll go to the next building, which is the Lancaster Armory. This is a 14,000 square foot property. It's on 2.78 acres. It also has a back area that is fenced for storage. This was a transfer from the New Hampshire Department of Military and Veteran Affairs in 2021. The roof has just been recently replaced due to damage. There was a declared severe disaster, so severe damage for the roof, and we replaced that. The feds, we received a $250,000, a little over $250,000 from the federal government, and we contributed about $83,000 or $84,000 for the roof replacement. At this point, the Armory is being used for regional equipment, in particular our snowmobiles and ATVs for the North Country. We do have some fisheries and wildlife assets that are included in there as well. Our law enforcement division primarily is occupying the majority of this location at this time with their equipment. Again, a little bit of an inefficient floor plan, not nearly as much as the other location, but they do have some areas that are sanctioned off, which we could repurpose differently. We do have a little bit of a cause of mildew that came with the roof damage situation. So we need to have mildew remediation, some inefficient insulation in windows, but the reconfiguration is the primary thing that we want to focus on. Interior redesign to allow us, one, to improve the energy efficiency, two, to create additional office space. Right now, we're grateful to DNCR because we're overcrowding their space right now, but we are at least trying to make that work. But in the meantime, we could reconfigure this and allow for some additional office space. We can also upgrade the facility for security measures as well. And in addition to the office space, what we really are looking forward to is being able to have an actual training room that we can use for our law enforcement divisions, partner agencies, and even for our biological staff so that we can do a variety of training right there on site in our own facility rather than going off site. I'll stop there and allow for any questions on this property.
Seeing none.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to slide 5. This is our Bunker Lane barn in Durham. This is a older barn facility that we've been using mostly by the Marine Division and our law enforcement divisions to store boats, nets, ATVs, marine research equipment, a variety of things. This is currently having structural failure. Literally, the back end of the barn, well, the last, I guess, 1/3 of the barn, we cannot walk on. We cannot even store, a gill net if we wanted to. There's nothing we can store within that location at the back end because underneath has given away. And right now, it's just being, I don't know what the formal word is, but it's being held up by what I call cables and straps. It's a little scary to me, but I'm sure that Bill could give you the technical terms. Nonetheless, we also have, it's an aging structure. We have no climate control and inadequate security. We've had some issues there with some security. We also have wildlife intrusion. While we love wildlife, we don't like them eating our nets and chewing on our wiring for our telemetry equipment, and that is happening. So what we would like to do, rather than a renovation here, we would actually like to do a replacement with we own quite a bit of property adjacent to this barn, and we could put down a slab and build a building, construct a building to replace this, and then likely repurpose the timbers that are associated with this barn. I'll stop there. If you have any further questions, we can certainly answer them. And like I said, Bill can give you all the technical terms.
Commissioner, do you have any idea what size building you'd replace it with and what kind of?
40 by 60,
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes,
40 by 60.
so 2,400 square foot.
And do you know what kind of building it would be? Would it be a prefabricated metal building or a stick-built building?
We would be looking at both, which would be the more efficient, because if we add HVAC control, climate controls, then we'd have to go to a probably stick-built for the higher insulation value. But if we go a different direction there, we would be able to do a prefab metal building as well.
Okay, thank you. And you said 40 by 60?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
My apologies. I did mean to mention the size of that. It is 2,400 square feet that we're searching for that. I apologize. Any further questions on that? Okay. So again, the expected outcomes, this basically allowing for efficient purpose-built layout tailored to operational needs on all of these buildings. Sewell Falls, again, is a renovation, improve our security, provide evidence and biological sampling, security on that, and enhancing our operational readiness just by reconfiguring. We can be able to access our snowmobiles quicker, access ATVs, especially when law enforcement needs to respond to things. The Lancaster Armory, again, a renovation, provide additional office space, training space, and I forgot to mention lab space. There is a component that we can actually have some lab space, which will be great for our fisheries department and even our wildlife department with our divisions, I should say, with the current things that we are studying regarding diseases and infestations and things like that. Also improve our equipment organization, maximize the use of a state facility, once again, especially since we just got a new roof. The bunker barn replacement, not renovation at this point. We want to provide secure storage for high valued equipment. The marine equipment especially can be pretty high value. Improve safety for our staff accessing the building. I'm very concerned about staff even going into the bunker barn, to be honest with you. And reduce our long-term maintenance cost overall. Moving on to the last slide, just in conclusion, we're looking, like other folks had mentioned, reducing deferred maintenance risk overall. Aging facilities that go unrepaired become exponentially more expensive, which we're trying to head that off. Reduce our operating costs through efficiencies, being able to do utility savings through these efforts will be significant for this agency in particular. Protect our state assets that we have, and also ensure our operational continuity. And with that, I'll close. If I have any further questions, happy to answer.
One question, it's something that's not here. And I know yesterday at the Executive Council meeting, hatcheries was quite the subject. Do you have any capital needs in that area? And if you could just explain how we're doing on the hatchery.
Yes, we do have several capital needs in that area. We do have an ongoing well, and actually Bill can talk to what we've been achieving over the last couple of years, but we do have ongoing work from the previous capital requests. Again, as I mentioned, we were very conscientious about making this request, even though we have many needs, and recognizing the hatcheries do need more work. I'm very concerned about the debt service payment in the future. And so we were doing a minimal request this year in hopes that we can find a new, more sustainable funding source for the agency long-term. And then we would probably come back to you in 2 years with a fairly substantial capital request at that point. But in the meantime, we are finishing up some of the capital projects, and Bill could probably speak to that if you have some specific questions, or if you want to just give a summary of where we are with our current.
The other we have 6 hatcheries currently. Most of the roofs have already been replaced over the last 2 years. We've gone with some energy high efficiency, bringing it all the way down to the rafters. We're replacing windows, doors, etc., like that are overdue for change. Let's just say it that way. And then we also have other site work that we've been doing for erosion control. We're also doing some coating of the tanks for the hatcheries as well to prolong their life, and as well doing some piping changes in the hatcheries themselves to make them more efficient and less costly to operate.
And if I may, I'd like to add just one more thing. One other concern that I had is with us bringing on the new Hampton hatchery, the new renovated modernization hatchery, we are going to have to assess and look at what are our needs really at this point. And so rather than to continue to invest right now in long-term in all the hatcheries, we want to take this moment, pause, finish up what we're doing here, get what we need immediately for this, if possible, to get this done, and then focus on how does the New Hampton hatchery alter our hatchery operations overall? Should we be investing in these hatcheries? Which ones should we be investing in? And then have a more focused, direct approach to what we're going to be doing for the future.
I just have a short question. How, it says to what your footprint is. You have 6, I think you said, hatcheries. How many other buildings does Fish and Game manage?
We have 154 total buildings across the state.
And that's, every time I ask people on my staff how many buildings we have, they're like, oh, it depends what you count. Right? And that's like every structure, like big and small, or?
Yes, whether it be storage, whether it be a remote building, a region building, a hatchery building, etc., residence.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Greatly
you.
appreciate your testimony.
Have a good day.
I'd like to call up Department of Natural and Cultural Resources. Good morning.
Good morning. My name's Adam Crapo. For the record, I'm the interim commissioner at the Department of Natural and Cultural Resources. I have Sean Hamilton with me. He's our director of the Division of Parks and Recreation. And I have Chris Marino, who's our Office of Administration chief. So we're handing out some a slideshow, but we're also making some substantial changes to our requests that we're handing out. The reason we're doing that is we have I'm relatively new to the agency, so is Sean, and so we went back to the drawing board after we made some of these submissions to correct some minor things, but also to try and make this a little bit more austere. And in addition to that, hone in on some of the more needed improvements. So with that, I'll go to the next, the second slide, which is basically our department's mission. We have 5 divisions within the Department of Natural and Cultural Resources. This presentation is really focused on two of those divisions, the Division of Forest and Lands and the Division of Parks and Recreation. Those are really our infrastructure heavy divisions. And there are the mission statements for both the agency and those 2 divisions on that slide that you can read after at your leisure. We have state parks at a glance. We have 94 state parks, park properties. The state park system is operationally self-funded, and it has been since 1991, where I think we were one of the first, I think we were the first in the nation to be operationally self-funded. However, that does not include capital requests. Capital, we try to do as much as we can within what we receive for revenue, but we do have substantial capital requests that you'll see here. 98% of communities have a state park property under a 45-minute drive from them, and over 1 million visitors pass through the toll booths. I wish we had a better term for that, but at our state park facilities. And we also have far more than that at the metered parking at like a Hampton and some of our other state parks where you pay by the vehicle. Division of Forest and Lands, we have, as a state, 4.7 million acres of forest, 1.9 million acres of conserved lands, and 250,000 acres in the Forest Legacy Program. We are the second most forested state in the nation, so they have a lot of work ahead of them, as they always do. Why does capital investment in state parks and lands matter? They support local communities, improve quality of life, protect New Hampshire's most important natural and cultural resources, help make New Hampshire a place where people want to live, work, and visit. We have a substantial economic impact. We improve quality of life. We are good stewards of the land, and we provide substantial community vitality. So getting to the meat of our presentation, we have 8 projects that we're coming to you with, and I'll go through them all in detail, but we have a total of $9.26 million that we're requesting for general fund capital. And you'll notice there are some matching funds that we're going to be showcasing there. So the first project is the Eloquoya State Park project. We have 30 amp hookups. We have 38 sites at Eloquoya State Park for our RVs. Many of these sites have caused damage to both our infrastructure, but guest infrastructure when folks pull in to camp. And the current, we're prioritizing this because our real concern is that if we don't upgrade the infrastructure, we're going to have to decommission some of these chargers because they're not up to current standards. They don't fully, generate the electricity needed for RVs pulling in, and they have caused fires and other infrastructure damage. Similar, Lake Francis State Park. They also have several pedestals. We call them pedestals, but there are 9 chargers that are really under what current standards are. They're at 15 amps at this point, and in similar issues. We need to upgrade both those state parks to 50 amp service. And the estimate for both of those projects combined, and that's one request, is $2 million, but we're requesting $1 million because we'll be seeking match through the Land Water Conservation Act funds at the federal level. And so it's a 50-50 match program. So before I jump to the next slide, do you want to add anything, Sean, to these 2 projects?
The only thing that I would add, and it's to Commissioner's point, is that the current standards for modern RVs are 50 amp service. And so with our 30 amp service at Eloquoya and 15 amp service at Lake Francis, that's far below industry standard. And so this is really to bring us up to that standard so we can continue to accommodate the RVs that are coming to our parks.
So moving on to the next slide, we have White Lake State Park. This is our second capital request. We're requesting $500,000 in general fund capital. This is a massive destination for both folks here and away. We have 17,000 campers and 31,000 day use visitors per year. The water system, what this funding would do is it would replace the water system. We have pressure issues and many leaks have been discovered. We've sort of patched it together with duct tape and bubble gum over the years, but it's getting to the point where we're really not only impacting the guest experience, but it's at the end of its useful life and it needs full replacement. You'll see some of the photos there from there's the pump house and some of the tanks and piping that you'll see on that slide. And so effectively, we want to ensure that this continues to be a premier destination for our guests. Next slide is the Mount Washington State Park Power and Safety Improvement Program. We have 5 20,000-gallon fuel tanks on the property. If you can imagine, that is a very difficult destination to deliver fuel to. However, we get it done. And right now, 2 of those 5 tanks are out of commission. We have another inspection this year, and these tanks are from 1945, so just at the end of World War II. So they are definitely at the end of their useful life. We are concerned at what this next inspection will show, number one, but number two, we also they do need to be replaced. They're at the end of their useful life, and we're concerned that if we don't replace them, we will experience a leak or something that could be impactful to the environment up there. If there's additional funding available through this after that part of the project's done, we would do some insulation and energy efficiency upgrades to the Sherman Adams building. But we did try to build that into the estimate, but given the proximity, it's at the summit of Mount Washington, and it's a very difficult destination to get to, and the climate is at best, it's one of the worst climates in the world in most of the year, and so I think we tried to build in a little bit of a margin to make sure that we can get some good proposals in. We are met. So the total request is $3 million. We would be we're really asking for a little under 2.8 million from general fund capital, and we'd be using 210,000 from the Mount Washington fund. Again, understanding that there are constraints on the general fund capital budget, we wanted to try and provide some match in many of these projects, and you'll see that theme as we go through this presentation. That takes me to my next project, Odeyarn State Park, the Visitor Center. So the Visitor Center is in very bad shape. It was opened in 1972. It's has 82,600 recorded visitors in 2025. As many of you know, it's a premier destination on the seacoast. The total capital project cost is estimated to be $2 million. We are requesting we're not requesting any general fund capital in this request. We're actually asking for capital through the Parks Fund. So using the Parks Fund to pay debt service on this project. And I'll tell you one of the reasons why we want to do this. It's sort of a unique approach, but given this has the potential for we're going to be expanding it. Not only are we replacing the bathhouse, but we're going to be adding retail and an office space. So we think that revenue generated from this facility through the retail component will be able to pay off the debt service on the bond. And so we would be leveraging, again, Park Fund capital, $1 million for $1 million of LWCF at the federal level to complete this project. Going to the next slide. We have $2.5 million in roofing repairs funding that we're requesting. So the park system has 870 buildings. Many are more than 50 years old. And so, as you can imagine, things break. We have emergency fixes. We have a lot of things that we are holding together with literally, shoestrings and duct tape. And so I think the intent of this is you'll see some of the pictures on this slide and the next slide, but there's a lot of roofs that need to be replaced to protect the infrastructure, and also a lot of HVAC, electrical, and water and septic infrastructure that needs to be replaced at many facilities. And what we end up doing is we have a running list of these projects. It's quite lengthy, but as the biennium goes on, things get reprioritized because of how many buildings we have and how many facilities we manage. It is very difficult to predict when the next emergency might happen. And so that's why we're asking for $2.5 million in capital to be able to complete these. And this would be general fund capital. Next slide is we are asking, very similar to the last request, we are asking for $1,250,000 for paving and parking lot projects. Many of these parking lot projects, have been really deferred over many years. You'll notice there are high impact locations that we list here: Echo Lake in North Conway, Odiorn Point, Monadnock Headquarters, Miller State Park, and White Lake Beach parking. By doing this, we're not only fixing the infrastructure at a surface level, but we're also adding some efficiency with revenue because we're creating better parking spots and we're able to fit more people into the parking lots. When you don't have lines and you don't have the infrastructure needed, people tend to park and give themselves plenty of room to maybe stretch out a couple car lengths. So by doing this, we're potentially increasing revenue, but we're also improving our infrastructure. And as you can see on some of those slides, some of the parking lots, they look like roads in Massachusetts, which none of us really want. So I'll go to the next slide. We have the Fox Forest Administrative Office property. This is an administrative office building for Fox Forest. It's a $225,000 general fund capital request. The State Fire Marshal's office has cited us for many safety violations over the years. We are asking for this funding to correct those safety violations and ensure that we're meeting the needs of our employees that are housed there. It's mainly around egress, fire protection systems, and emergency notification infrastructure on the property. So I'll go to the next slide. The last request is another joint request. It's historic sites repairs. We have two sites, White Island and Fort Constitution. White Island it's a historic lighthouse. It's 6 miles off the seacoast, and it is to replace some of the I call it parging, but basically the exterior of the lighthouse to preserve it, and it also to make it improvements to the generator room and correct several electrical code violations that are there, and do some masonry work. And that project is projected to be $350,000. That would be the request is general fund capital to do that. And then moving to Fort Constitution, given it's the 250th birthday of America, we are asking for $650,000, which I will tell you, the estimate was 1.8 million and 6 million overall to do. 1.8 million was to do phase one of this project, but this 650,000 would go towards some of the most important parts of Fort Constitution, where it's really in disrepair. We have had to close that park for most of the season. We are opening it up, given the anniversary this year on a limited basis, but we have had some liability issues that have popped up over the years from falling bricks and other things at this facility. And what this money will be used for is to actually help repair some of those things. And hopefully over time, again, we're not asking for the whole thing, given the general fund constraints, but I think over time, we're trying to repair that historic structure and get it back open to the public. And that's where we're at. So, in summary, we are asking for a lot of investment, but we have, as you saw in the first couple slides, a lot of infrastructure that really needs to be repaired and or replaced, and we can handle about this much of the projects. One of the things I will say that we took off was our initial request was the tramway lodges, Summit Lodge and Base Lodge. But given the disposition of where we are, we just released the RFB for the tramway last week, and so we were waiting for bids to come in. And depending on what happens with that, we didn't feel it was appropriate to move to the next step until we evaluated what those bids looked like. And so with that, we're at time. So I wanted to open it up for any questions or any concerns.
Sure. Just a quick question on the tram. With the funding you've received, I know you're still waiting for the RFP to come back, as you said. Are you anticipating needing anything more for the operation of the tram? Not the base lodges or anything, but do you think you have sufficient funding?
It remains to be seen, but we are hopeful that we have $27 million in general fund capital, and we are not disclosing how much federal funding we are receiving, but we will be receiving some federal funding, considering we're in a competitive bid process right now. We'll be receiving some federal funding to potentially supplement that, but we're hoping that it'll be very close to the 27 because it's not much above that.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Have you, hi, have you, your one request where you're essentially doing revenue funding, I think it's the ODORN thing where you think the sales will, have you, historically, you haven't done a lot of that, have you, where you've done sort of revenue-based capital?
We have not. We have done it we did do it for the seawall, but we have not done it for very many projects. And I think there's always been a concern that because the Parks Fund can be fragile year to year, you do get ebbs and flows based on visitors and whether it rains or if it's sunny out over the year, you do see an ebb and flow of revenue that comes in. However, we do feel like we're at a point where if we can demonstrate that there is a return on investment, similar to how a private business would operate, if there's a return on investment for that project, we can utilize Parks funds to do that. We would be very hesitant to just use Parks funds for things that don't generate revenue, because the concern is over time you'd erode the Parks fund, and then we would be in a position where if we had a bad season, we would be doing massive layoffs or something like that. And that's not a good position to be in for us.
I didn't know if historically there was a sort of a perceived legislative difficulty with that, or it's a sort of a department thing. I'm thinking in particular things like campgrounds, where my understanding is campgrounds are very popular, and
40,000 visitors a year, yes.
Okay, well done. Oversubscribed in on good weekends and all that, and with significant need. And has there ever been any look at like expanding campground footprints based on projected revenue? It just strikes me that every year, you, me, Fish and Game, pick somebody, we all have significant capital needs that are, there's $400 million of general fund requests, and we're going to fund 100, 120, whatever it is. And I just don't know if there's a way to leverage that, or you think the Parks Fund is really that tight?
So we think depending on the project, right? I mean, we do on occasion expand campgrounds site by site, or we do add sites here or there, and we have used Parks funds or some of our partners, nonprofit partners, to do some of that. However, the return isn't always there, And so I think where we want to emphasize is if we're going to use the Parks Fund to fund something, we want to make sure that there's a return on investment and be pretty dang sure that there will be, because again, we are at a little over 4 million now, but just a few seasons ago, we were in the red, pretty much in the red. So, I mean, it does ebb and flow. And I think what we want to do is make sure that again, if we're going to do that, we are going to have enough revenue to cover the debt service every year.
Can you give me a sense of how, and maybe this is a question for Chris, but how, in the red and the black and I get that good years, bad years, et cetera. How often are we having a red year? I mean, I have a sense that it's based on nothing, right? It's just a vague sense that it's like 50-50 and I don't want to say precarious, but like we net fine over 5, 6, 7 years, but there are years when we're not netting at all.
Yes, thanks. So the ebb and flow, certainly for the Cannon Mountain Fund, has seen that kind of up and down over the last, I'd say, 12 years. The Parks Fund typically has stayed above, has had a balance for the 12 years that, since I've been there. I know it was in a deficit, I think around 2011 or 12. It slowly began to build due to changes that were made in the operations and planning and management of the system. So we have stayed above that for some period of time, but there has been an ebb and flow. For example, the year after the pandemic, I think we hit our highest amount number. We had a park fund, I think somewhere around $8 or $9 million, but we've seen it go as low as 2 or 3. And we do have legislation in place to sort of set a floor where if we see that's going below $1.5 million, that we really can't touch that fund without permission through the fiscal committee to take action for anything. And so that was anticipated at the time. But yeah, I think generally the ebbs and flows have gone up and down, not sometimes fairly substantially, but over the last at least 12 years, it has stayed above that $1.5 million floor.
Good, thank you, thanks very much. And I'll just note one other thing on the Fort Constitution, the raids on William and Mary. You may know that the single greatest expert in the country on the raids of Fort William and Mary is a retired DAS employee. So if you end up doing anything around that, let me know. He's in Concord, so.
We will absolutely do that. I did not know that, but that's an interesting tidbit. So appreciate that.
DNCR normally asks for funds to repair roofs and parking lots, things like that. And it looks like your list, you've gone over it and you know what you want to do. And you want to pick and choose which ones that you can afford as they go out to bid. Is it possible to get a list of the parking lots and the roofs that you have in mind to repair?
We can absolutely get you a list. The one thing I will say, and it's an important caveat, is that things happen when you own, things happen when you own 870 facilities in just state parks and then almost 900 department-wide. And so what I'd say is we'll definitely provide a list, but things tend to get reprioritized pretty frequently because things break. You don't want emergency closures in high yield parks. If you have a good weekend, you don't want to be closed on 4th of July weekend, for example. So, I think the intent is to give us some flexibility within that appropriation to be able to move stuff around at project by project. Obviously, we work with DPW pretty regularly to make sure what we're doing is sound. But I think what we're asking for on both of those appropriations is as much flexibility as possible to be able to maximize the impact.
Asking for a list isn't affecting the flexibility that, would be granted you. It's just an idea of geographically where they are.
Absolutely. We can get you that.
Thank you.
Seeing no other questions, thank you very much for your testimony.
Thank you.
We always try and save the best for last, so I'd like to call up the Department of Transportation.
Can I just say, it's the agency that went first, I resent that.
It's like a rock concert. You start well and you end well.
Oh.
That's it.
Nice save.
Sure, we love all of our agencies equally, just like we love all of our towns equally. So, yes, but thank you for the comment and good morning. For the record, my name's David Rodriguez, Commissioner. Thank you. For the record, my name's David Rodriguez, Commissioner at Department of Transportation, and with me is Danielle Chardonnay, our Director of Finance. We provided two bits of additional information for you, a PowerPoint presentation and a book that describes all of our requests in more detail. If it pleases the group, I'm going to go through the presentation very quickly and we'll take your questions as they come up. Starting just a little bit about the scope of the Department of Transportation. We manage well over 400 buildings at a cost of, or original cost of about $100 million. Among the structures, as Commissioner Allinghouse pointed out, some are small and then some are rather large buildings with full facilities. We have about 85 statewide patrol facilities that typically include a patrol shed, a salt shed, a sand shed, and a storage shed. We have around 86 fuel sites. We have 6 district offices, 6 satellite garages for our fleet, and we have 14 bridge maintenance facilities. In addition, our fuel distribution has about 127 underground tanks. We have about 461 miles of rail track. We support 9 local public transit agencies, approximately 7 human service agencies that provide transportation, and we have 13 federally funded airports that we distribute funds to. When you look at our capital budget, we tend to draw from 2 specific funding sources, the general fund and the highway fund. We also have our turnpike facilities that draws from turnpikes, and we don't include those requests in our capital budget request. We've broken up the presentation and the book, starting with our general fund request and then moving on to our highway fund request. So the first item for our general fund request is our state match for our federal aviation funds. These are airport projects that are typically identified by the airports. The funds are requested by the airports, and we historically tend to split the match for these projects. Half a state match and half comes from the airport facilities. And we have a request to provide that state match. Overall, this unlocks about $32 million worth of federal funds. Moving on, similarly with the transit vehicles, there are several public transit agencies that draw on this funds for replacement vehicles. Without the state match, many of the transit projects would be delayed or would not go forward. Many of these transit agencies really run on a shoestring and provide a valuable service for the communities. So similarly, we ask for this capital budget request so that we can split the match with these transit agencies. And this unlocks about $10.4 million in federal funds for buildings. Repair of state-owned railroad bridges. We have about 145 active railroad bridges. And the truth is, we do very little in the area of preventative maintenance for those bridges. Most things are reactionary. We do not have funds regularly programmed to go towards those bridges. In recognition for that, we are asking for this capital budget item to start to do some routine repairs and maintenance on those bridges. And it is pretty important because while we defer maintenance into assets like bridges, we really reach a tipping point where we get too far. And instead of a simple repair or reconstruction, we're then looking at a replacement. Our priority number 4 is for railroad replacement rail and ties. And this goes to our state-owned rail. And this request is for the department to buy the rail and the ties, and we then work with our railroad lease operators. They take those ties and rails and put them in to replace the most vulnerable parts of the rail networks that they run on. And then finally, I have a couple more. First, transit infrastructure FTTA match. This particular fund is for federal funds that are available for transit facilities. There's about 18.3 million available. And this would allow the department to provide a match again for those transit agencies to leverage their funds and the federal funds to do some facility reconstruction. Coast has had a building on the books for a number of years, and they struggled to come up with the full match for that facility. So this would allow the state to share the match with those transit facilities. And then finally, priority number 6. This is another area that historically we do not invest in. So a lot of our inactive rails have been turned into rail trails. They're very popular. You can read about Andover almost every day in the news, where just a short 1 mile section is interrupted. DNCR manages most of these trails for us, and there are some federal funds that we provide directly to DNCR to manage those trails, but we always lack funds for the maintenance. So an example is a rail trail in Swansea that was damaged several years ago and is still damaged today. We get regular complaints from the abutters, from the people who want to use the trail. And we're working creatively with the town of Swansea. They're doing a local bridge replacement. They have to provide some mitigation. So they're going to come in and do some repair. But between DOT and DNCR, we really have no funds to respond to emergencies on the rail trail network. And that is our general fund asks.
Okay. Question on the order of things here. You mentioned on the railroad repair of state-owned bridges that not a lot of money has gone into that in the past. And given that a failure of that could be catastrophic, why isn't that priority a little higher than number 3?
Because we also see the need to unlock the federal funds for the airports and for the transit vehicles. Those funds really have a multiplying effect to get those federal funds. And this is the first biennium that I'm aware of that we do rate this bridge rehabilitation fund as high as it is. It's typically been towards the bottom of the list, and we agree with you. It does need to be a higher priority, but we do want to make sure we can unlock the federal funds as well.
Thank you. Seeing no other questions.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'll move on to the highway fund now. So for the highway fund ask, our number 1 priority is our salt and sand storage facilities. Statewide, we have about 154 salt and sand sheds. One of the common questions is, well, why do we have so many? Why don't we build just bigger ones in a more central location and work out of? And same thing with our patrol facilities. So we are about whatever, 230 plus or minus municipalities in the town in the state, with 85 patrol sheds spread around the state. That's about one patrol shed for every 3 towns. So when you think about it logistically, being spread out the way we are means we can do our operations most efficiently, whether it's plowing the road, responding to emergencies, and so forth. And we do think, we've put some thought into it, we do think we have the right number of facilities statewide, and keeping up with our salt and sand sheds is very important to us. So that's our first ask, is for $3.4 million to continue to invest in those. We work very closely with Public Works. The unfortunate part of those facilities is the cost of them has increased significantly. And I've heard several times this morning discussion about the fire marshal's office and building codes. Back in the 60s and 70s, we built these facilities ourselves. Sometimes we would cut the wood next to the roads, we'd mill that wood, and we'd build these facilities. No, not today. No, we cannot do that anymore. We have to have professionally designed facilities that need to meet all the building codes that anybody else would need to meet, and the costs have changed accordingly. Our number 2 priority is our underground fuel tank replacement program. So the Department of Transportation runs a statewide fuel distribution system that serves not only the Department of Transportation, it serves all state agencies, it serves municipalities and nonprofits, school systems, buses, fire trucks. Everybody fills up there. We like to keep that fuel distribution system in good condition. Number 1 priority is that we are environmentally compliant. There was a time we struggled to be environmentally compliant, but we are fully environmentally compliant now, and we work to stay ahead of that. The warranty for the tanks that we put in the ground is between 20 and 25 years. We look at tanks when they're getting 35 to 40 years and trying to keep them up. And very similar to our sand and salt sheds, some of these facilities, the tank area and the concrete base around the tanks was built by our own forces, and we need to continue to invest in those to keep them up as the concrete gets cracked and so forth. So we think this is important. We also act as a statewide strategic reserve for fuel. So we have about 900,000 gallons of underground storage between gasoline and diesel fuel. That is a backstop for the whole state agencies as far as emergency response. And another thing we consider, when we started this, we didn't have all the 24/7 fueling facilities we do now. So it's like, well, why don't we cut that back a little and just go to the gas station and fill up? Well, you take a 10-wheel truck with double wings, snow plow, and a sander. No, we don't want to be going to the fuel stations with that type of, the commercial fuel stations with that type of equipment to fill up. There's significant risk involved with that. A new item for us this year, a new request, is $500,000 to start updating some of our patrol facility heating systems. Again, a number of these are aged, and we'd like to have this in our operating budget. This type of replacement fund is not in our operating budget. And we're asking for some capital funds to do that. We have a specific patrol facility we're asking to move forward with the design and replacement of. That's in Pinkham, right at the top, not far from where the auto road is. And that's the crew that keeps Route 16 open through Crawford Notch. From that facility is, how old is that? That's about 90 years old. The modern equipment doesn't fit in there. And it's time for us to do something a little different. Again, from a location, could we service that from other areas? I've been there in a significant snowstorm before. You're lucky if you can see your hand in front as you hold it out. We need the equipment there to keep those roads open, and that's what's worked well for us. Moving on, we also have a significant request for patrol facility life safety upgrades. So we do winter maintenance with the same crew that does our regular maintenance, plus some rented equipment. We have one shift that works 24 hours a day for several days during significant winter events. Over the years, we do have safety rest breaks for them, and they do need to get a little nap. Over the years, people have brought their old recliners into the facilities, their old couches, set them up in the garage with the equipment and stuff. And well, that worked very well for some years. As the fire inspectors come out and take a look around their buildings, they remind us that we cannot be doing that. Unfortunately, some of the municipalities have had these facilities burned down in the past, and we have risk there. And this item is to help us provide sleeping quarters, not at all of our facilities, but at some key facilities where we have a significant number of people there that need a safe place to rest. Priority number 6 is Milford Patrol Facility. This one is 87 years old, and again, does not function and meet the need for the modern day equipment that we have, for the crew that works out of there with a safety area and so forth. We realize that this is a significant request. We look at our barn capacity. Danielle's looked at this very, very closely. And what we see with a 20-year repayment is that our debt to revenue ratio is approximately 5%, which we think we can handle and which keeps us in decent shape. But we understand you all have tough decisions to make with the limited resources that we all have.
Any questions?
I have a question about fuel.
Yeah.
You have 86 fuel sites and 85 patrol sheds, but they're not co-located, is that right?
They are co-located in many cases, not in all cases. So for instance, in Ossipee, we have a fuel site at the State Police Troop there. I think it's Troop C. It's removed from our facility. We have one on Hazen Drive as well, next to State Police, that's removed from our facility. So for the most part, they are co-located, but we have some sites that are removed.
When you upgrade them, do you remove them?
When we upgrade our fuel sites, we remove the existing.
No, but do you ever change the location of the site?
We do. So one location we're considering is in Belmont, on Route 106. We have an ideal location for a fuel site. that is one that we have looked at over the years, that if we replace, we could get rid of Guilford and we could get rid of another one in Belmont, and that would consolidate and be very good. We need to work with the town and have their support to build a fuel site at the location that we want to, but it is something that's on the list.
Good, okay, thanks.
Question on the salt and storage facilities. The 1.725 million for each seems, not a construction person, seems high, given their basically large sheds.
Yes.
Could you explain why the cost is so?
Oh, I sure can, because it seems very high to me too. So we agree with you. However, this is an item that we've seen very sharp increases in cost in over the last 5 to 6 years. We do tend to make robust facilities so that they have at least a year's worth of salt. But I did take some numbers to help explain this a little better. If I find it, or Susan, if you have them and want to come up, that's fine. But I can say in 2021, our capital budget request was 1.7 million for 2 years. In 23, it was 2 million. In 25, it was 3. And now we're up to the current cost. We work very closely with Mr. Cupper and his team to come up, and I don't know if you would add anything to say we're a little high here or a little low. I know you'll check all these for us, but.
I guess I'd mention that the information, the data that you use for your request is based on actual numbers from previous bids, real numbers coming from contractors. They're as good as we can get.
Yes, thank you.
I have the same reaction to, this is a huge part of my world, right? To everything we build seems ridiculously expensive. And this is a conversation I have with my wife too, who is used to it and just rolls her eyes. But at the end of the day, but it just seems, I'm like, this is crazy. That's not possible. And then bids come in. And I remember I did hearing with legislators who had to do with the garage, the relatively expensive garage, parking garage that's being built nearby. And somebody was like, you guys keep raising the number, you're trying to pad the, and I'm like, I'm not trying to, we're not padding anything, we're doing an estimate. And an estimate is a guess of somebody who does this for a living, of what the bids will come in at. And I said this to someone, it doesn't matter what your budget is, if nobody bids that. And we are not, our bids aren't coming in under very much lately, that's all I'm saying. So, but yeah, everything's ridiculously expensive, and it's probably Senator Gray's fault.
Well, it's not Senator Gray's fault that salt is corrosive. And a lot of the steel buildings that are being built now, because those are the less expensive way to do some of this construction, can't be used in the salt shed, or you'll be replacing the thing in just a few years. So, take that into consideration. Lumber costs and different things that you're using now to build those things. The forest industry here in New Hampshire is not as robust as it used to be, et cetera. So.
Any other questions? No? Thank you very much for your testimony.
Thank you.
And with that, we are finished. I would like to thank Senator Gray and Commissioner Goulet for their participation here. And I would especially like to thank Commissioner Arlinghouse and his team of Sherry, Ted, and Laura, because many of you may know, if you don't know, they do all the work here, and they have a lot more work to do on this budget. So greatly appreciate all your help.
And they do all the work, not me.
We are adjourned.